For today's team preview, we'll discuss the Geelong Cats. So a few interesting plays to discuss here. Fingers crossed we get a few rookies as well, which we'll speak about. So dug a little bit into that. And yeah, so Geelong, how will they go, or how do I think they'll go in 2022? I don't think they'll make top four, maybe make the finals. I think their window's basically closed now. There's younger teams who are better, fitter, faster, and more players in their prime. Most of Geelong's players are past their prime now, so very concerning, very irresponsible list management in my eyes, but not super bullish on them, and plus the way they lost might be a bit demoralising, but they have come back from bad finals quite a few times, so the list isn't completely useless just yet, but it's going to get to that stage where they plummet in not sure when, but it's going to happen, but yeah, they're in no man's land at the moment. But we'll speak about the players nonetheless. And we'll start off with the defence. So the one player I have listed in defence is Tom Stewart. So we've basically said since he had his Liz Frank, I don't know how to say it, that injury to his foot, that he's probably not going to have a full preseason, so not going to pick him. So apparently he's actually in full training at the moment. But he did say, he mentioned in an interview in afl.com.au that he remains nervous about his foot. He doesn't know if he'll flare up or anything like that, but he's doing all the training at the moment. So that's a good sign. I probably still wouldn't pick him. He's probably max price, and we'll get other players who probably have zero doubts over any injury concerns. So one where, look, his usage is very high in Geelong, so I still expect him to score well. They rely on him a lot out of defence. So not one I'm interested in starting with, but yeah, 590k. I think we got some alternatives that we'll be okay with, and one that probably end up in our team at some point, just depending on if he's at his best. So pretty nasty injury. So yeah, just very much a wait and see, and not a starting pick for me. Even if he does well in the Marsh series, not 100% sure, because this injury has ended a few players' careers. I know Dane Swan had it. He kind of decided to retire. Probably going to retire anyway. And I think Adams had it from Brisbane, and he had a bit of trouble with it. So he's back on the park now, though. So it can cause problems. Take a back seat on this one. Let it self-play out in the first few rounds, and then we'll decide whether he looks good enough to bring in. But yeah, fully fit, he's definitely top 6. So that is Tom Stewart. We'll move on to the midfield now, and the two names I have here are Guthrie and Patrick Dangerfield. So neither of these picks interest me at all. Guthrie is somewhat interesting because his average last year in 2021 was 113 rather. But because he had a block where Zach Smith fell on his collarbone, he was going to miss 1 week, then he missed 2, then he missed another one, he came back, didn't really look the same for a while, until about the last month of the season. So possibly should have been a near 120 average for Guthrie, which is pretty underrated, I think. But given the alternatives we have and players at a better age, closer to the mid-20s, with more proven history, I think Guthrie is pretty safe to forgo Guthrie. But he can definitely score well. He gets to the right spots very easily. I watched him a bit because I did own him for a while there, and can take a few kickouts as well. Gets a lot of pill off halfback, a lot of pill on the outside as well. So look, I think at the right price, you could bring him in during the season, but very much a wait and see how he goes. Not sure he can back it up, but he did back up his All-Australian 2020, so not a starting pick. Probably only an upgrade target if he's at a very cheap price for some sort of reason. So not going to worry about Guthrie too much, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's up there. Dangerfield 580k, I think he's 31, 32 now. He's a pretty easy pass. So few injuries have popped up the last few years. Seems to cop a lot of knocks during games and just not in his prime, and he's not that guy, best player in the league anymore. So Dangerfield's an easy skip, and yeah, maybe if he has an injury affected game and he's 450k and you're struggling for money, in that scenario you can pick him, I guess. But otherwise, it's a no from me. So not really expecting 110 plus anymore from him. Maybe somewhere in the hundreds, 105 to 105 plus, that sort of range. So can definitely do more, but given his age and trajectory, that's where I'm kind of expecting. So yeah, not going to worry too much about danger. So the Rucks is John Segler. Actually had a good year, averaged 90 for Hawthorn. Played quite well. Just was able to solidify that number one ruck for a while. Doesn't really play 22 games ever, and 490k, so just awkward. The ceiling's not there with Segler. I'm not sure why I'm talking about him. He's ruck only. So we'll move on to the forward line. Now I have two names here, Mitch Duncan and Tom Hawkins, and we definitely need to speak about Mitch Duncan. So all I could find was he was jogging laps at training, so he was some sort of limited preseason at the moment. See what happens after Christmas, but I couldn't find what it was, the issue with him. But maybe he's just being managed because he's had a few injuries the past few years, soft tissue injuries, knee injuries. But yeah, 540k can definitely score, but when you start to get 30-31, and I said this stuff about Zorko last year and backfired a lot, so he could very much be Zorko all over again. But Duncan's probably had a lot more injuries than Zorko. Zorko just had one or two. He had Achilles tendonitis, and he had something else, I can't remember. I think he had like a calf strain or something like that. Duncan's had quite a few others, multiple injuries, had hamstrings and some other injuries as well. So for me, Mitch Duncan is a pass as a starting pick. I can see why a lot of people like him as a pick. I don't trust him. I don't want to pay 540k for him. I'm not sure what his role is, or I assume he's a midfielder who just starts at half forward for a lot of the time. Does play half forward, that half forward role, but does push up in the midfield as well. Very good player. What's another interesting thing is, I'm not sure if anyone remembers, but in the elimination final in 2021, I reckon he scored, I should have got this in front of me, I reckon it was like a 130 or something like that. He played off half back that game. It was just for the one game, and he looked like, if he had that role in the home and away season, he looked like he would have averaged like 115 plus. It was disgusting the way he was, just racked up 10 possessions in no time. So he knows how to find the pill, and they were using him a lot out of defence because they have issues on exiting defence, pretty badly exposed in the final series. So it would be, I wonder if they put him in that role if, say, Stewart doesn't come up. So that would be very fascinating, and that would almost tempt me to pick him because, well, the role, he looked unbelievable in it. And durability for players generally improves a little bit if they're at halfback. We saw it with Aaron Hall. Short plays 22 games. Lloyd plays 22 games, or 21 last year. Just because if you're playing loose halfback, there's just less contact to happen, basically. So you're a little bit safer. More receives rather than contested ball, so less banged up, I guess. So, but doesn't change the fact that he has had soft tissue history. So still a slight concern, but that role looked pretty disgusting the way he played it. So yeah, just wanted to touch on that. If I see him line up half forward in the preseason, I'm still not going to pick him. Doesn't really matter. So one that I think will definitely need to be in our teams at some stage because he does score points, and his scoring was quite heavy before he got injured. I reckon he was, I think 115 plus, something like that, when he was, before he copped the injury. So yeah, was scoring really well. But no from me. No is a starting pick. I have my doubts. The other one is Tom Hawkins. So Tom Hawkins, traditionally key forward, struggle to score, but given he played in a strong team, gets a bit of ruck work, can get those easy goals and hit-outs as well, shoving people in the ruck, and just overall unbelievable player. Most score involvements in the league. Clear best forward in the league for 2-3 years now. So unfortunately he's 33, something like that. So I wouldn't be picking Tom Hawkins as a starting pick. Average did drop to 93 after it was 100 plus in the Corona Ball year. So not one to start with, maybe one to upgrade later, but the trajectory is going downwards, unfortunately. But yeah, still every chance to be All-Australian again, and still a great player. So for a while there, he had a back problem, thought he was shot, but been unbelievable for the past few years. So at the right price with key forwards, their scoring is up and down. He has multiple 50s in his scoring in 2021. So 50s and 60s. I think fair few of them happened early as well. So if he drops to 150, don't bring him in. Just if you want to bring him in, it has to be after a few bad games or when he's at an appropriate price. So probably like sub 500k. But just need to make sure that he's still that player. So see how he goes, but not one I'll start with, but potentially one you can bring in after. And now we'll move on to the rookies. So I have 4 rookies here. The first one is Sam De Koning, 123k. So been in the system for 2 years. He's a key defender. And it looks like there's a spot for him with Henderson retiring. So with De Koning, so we need to look at what his numbers are. So his average in the VFL, AFL Fantasy, because I don't have Supercoach numbers, is 46. Now, he kicked 2 goals, 1 in one of those games, so I assume he played forward. So we're going to scrap that score. Only because I seriously doubt he's had 3 shots on goal playing key defence. So without that game, he averaged 39 over 5 or 6 games. 2 of those games were sub 20. This is not looking good. We'll see how he goes. I think he played 1 game and scored 29 in the AFL, but actually gets a few hitouts. So because in fantasy scores you don't get intercept points, you don't get contested ball, you don't get hitouts to advantage. I'm not sure. Maybe they use blitz halves for defensive rucking anyway, but seems like he can ruck given his height and his hitout count in the VFL. So maybe there's a bit more upside for Supercoach there. One that it seems like he might have good job security. I think reading in on Big Fwd People's Best 22 for Geelong, he seems to be in most teams there. So this is probably going to be a slow burn if you pick him, but one you'd probably want to avoid if you can. But again, we'll see what he's capable of in the preseason games, but not really expecting a whole lot. But you can see there's a few scoring avenues here where he might be able to get like 50s and 60s and slow burn to 250k or something. So I'll watch in the preseason, but not one I'm super excited about. Now there's 3 more rookies that Selwood mentioned in a preseason article just a few days ago. So he said 3 players that have impressed him are Cooper Stevens, Nick Stevens, and Francis Evans. So I'll start off with Cooper Stevens. So Cooper Stevens has been injured for 2 years. Pick 16 in the 2019 draft, so first round pick, had a leg fracture and then had to have ankle surgery the year after. In his draft profile, it states he has really strong endurance and a really strong contested ball winner. So that bodes well for us. So given I would assume they need to inject some youth into that team, I fingers crossed with a full preseason, he gets on the park and he plays for us, because it's clear, based on the attributes and the fact that he's been in the system for 2 years, he's the scoring power is here, I think. So there's no VFL numbers to go by because he's injured. So one to watch. The profile fits the Supercoach scoring power, but again, haven't really seen him play, so definitely needs to pass the eye test. Fingers crossed he's a rookie for us and could be a fieldable option, which is, it's very hard to, spaces are very tight in the midfield this year for fieldable options. So still might be able to throw on the bench, but one where it seems like I'd be okay fielding. But again, we'll see how he goes in the preseason. The next player is Nick Stevens. So I don't know a lot about Nick Stevens just from my research for this video. So he's a tall rebounding defender, 192 centimeters, has a penetrating kick and really strong endurance, which is fantastic. Averaged 76 in the VFL AFL Fantasy in 2021. So this looks good. This looks like the type of player Geelong need. Good kick, can rebound, because not a lot of players are comfortable rebounding at Geelong at the moment, with speed and endurance. I think this will be his 2nd year, I think. So this seems like a player, based on what I'm reading, that Geelong would want to play. Again, very hard to tell because still a whole preseason to go. I'm not sure how he's improved since coming from the draft to the AFL. So something to work with here. Might be one where we get down the line, but one to watch nonetheless. So hopefully he's actually a mid only, but his draft profile says he's a defender. Given that, it sounds like he probably played wing in the VFL or something. So, yeah, just one to watch in the preseason. The last one is Francis Evans. So, reading a few draft profiles, a lot of them said that he could have gone undrafted. Competition from Myers, Close, and now Tyson Stengel. I didn't include him in this video because he's about 250k in the forward line, so not super excited about that. All I could really find on him is, he's small forward, and Wells, the recruitment manager at Geelong, said he has good work ethic, which is a massive positive. So, yeah, he played a few games. I think he was sub a few times as well, so didn't really see a whole lot from him. And yeah, there's tough competition for the small forward spot. So, yeah, this doesn't look like a good one, but I've been in this system a few years now, so maybe if he can lock down a spot somehow, and he can sort of slow burn for us, but role seems bad, competition seems high, talent doesn't seem super high either, so not super excited about this one. So still, I think DeConning and Cooper Stevens very much considered. DeConning, if there's no one else. Stevens definitely looks promising. And then Nick Stevens, not really sure where he's at in his development, but has the profile to score well, I think. So that's the video. I won't be starting any Geelong premiums this year, and fingers crossed we get a few rookies. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.